The galaxy had long whispered about humanity as a minor curiosity, a species limited to a small corner of space and supposedly incapable of threatening the great powers that dominated interstellar politics. Yet in the quiet shadows of the Andromeda sector, where the high councils of the Zarian Hegemony and the Saurith Dominion convened, humans were dismissed with casual arrogance, their potential underestimated by every empire that had ever charted the stars, and aboard the flagship of Admiral Korran, commander of the Hegemony's patrol fleet. The officers debated humanity's significance with confident certainty, plotting maneuvers and contingencies that assumed the humans would crumble under the pressure of superior firepower and experience, oblivious to the centuries of hidden preparation occurring on Earth, where engineers, scientists, strategists, and diplomats had quietly woven a network of technological marvels and tactical doctrines so advanced that conventional galactic measures would barely scratch their defenses. And as Korran's fleet approached Sol space under the guise of a friendly inspection, sensors picked up anomalies in orbital energy signatures around Mars, faint but deliberate, which were immediately dismissed as sensor noise by the arrogant Hegemony officers, unaware that these readings were the first indicators of human orbital defenses, sophisticated countermeasures, and adaptive AI drones positioned to assess, learn, and respond in real time to alien movements. While on Earth, Commander Patel oversaw simulations that predicted Hegemony tactics, exploiting their assumptions and weaknesses with surgical precision, and in parallel, diplomatic envoys broadcast subtle signals to neighboring systems, hinting that any aggression against humanity would trigger responses not just from Earth but from allied colonies and protective treaties that had been kept secret for decades, a network of influence and power the Hegemony had never imagined. So when Korran ordered a reconnaissance sweep of the inner planets, expecting compliance or minor resistance, the human forces initiated their first calculated measures. Drones silently disabled engines and sensors of approaching frigates. Orbital platforms emitted controlled electromagnetic distortions that made ships appear to be in multiple locations at once. And communications were intercepted and subtly manipulated to create confusion and hesitation within the alien chain of command. Or while humans maintained outward calm, their response is precise, disciplined, and unprovocative, revealing to Korran's officers a pattern of intelligence and foresight that contradicted every expectation. And as the hours stretched into days, Hegemony strategists realized too late that humanity's defenses were not reactive but preemptive, that every move, every deployment had been anticipated and counted in advance, and that the humans were orchestrating a layered demonstration of power, patience, and strategic genius, a revelation that shook Korran's confidence and began a cascade of doubt through the fleet. While back on Earth, leaders calculated their next steps with a mixture of restraint and inevitability, knowing that any misstep could escalate into open conflict, yet also understanding that their hand had been forced by centuries of neglect, dismissiveness, and underestimation. And as the humans gradually revealed orbital strike capabilities, advanced cloaking, arrays, and fleet coordination that rivaled the combined forces of nearby empires, the Hegemony officers faced a terrifying realization that their assumptions had been catastrophically flawed, that every calculation they had relied upon, every prediction of human weakness, was nothing more than a mirage, and that the so-called minor species had turned the galaxy's greatest fleets into pawns of a strategic game they had only just begun to comprehend, a game in which humans controlled the pace, the perception, and ultimately the outcome, demonstrating that underestimating humanity was not merely an error but the greatest mistake any civilization could ever make, a mistake whose consequences would ripple across the stars, reshaping alliances, strategies, and the very understanding of what it meant to measure power, intelligence, and potential. And as Korran's flagship trembled under the precision of human countermeasures and the calm inevitability of their tactics, the officers realized with sinking horror that the title of their folly, Mistake of the Ages, was no exaggeration, that every empire which had dismissed or threatened Earth would now be forced to reckon with a species whose ingenuity, patience, and resolve were unparalleled, and that the galaxy's understanding of strength, honor, and strategy would never be the same, for humanity had quietly rewritten the rules of engagement, demonstrating that restraint could be as devastating as aggression, foresight more lethal than firepower, and that misjudging humans was a gamble no civilization could afford to take twice. As the Hegemony fleet struggled to process the unfolding reality, human forces continued their precise, methodical maneuvers, revealing layers of capability the aliens could not anticipate, with orbital platforms silently deploying adaptive drone swarms that tracked and neutralized enemy craft while simultaneously projecting decoy signals that created the illusion of overwhelming numbers. And on Earth, scientists monitored the Hegemony communications network, analyzing fleet movements in real time and sending encrypted updates to field commanders, ensuring that every human countermeasure was perfectly timed, while civilians watched with calm confidence from the protected cities and orbital habitats, their trust in humanity's leadership a stark contrast to the panic rippling through the alien ranks as the Hegemony attempted conventional scans of Mars and the inner planets, only to find their sensors sabotaged by subtle subspace distortions and electromagnetic interference that mimic cosmic anomalies, forcing them to second-guess every reading and assumption. And as Admiral Korran tried to issue commands, he realized that response times had been preemptively calculated, every maneuver anticipated, and every tactic counted, creating a feedback loop of frustration and confusion, with ships drifting in orbit unable to advance or retreat without exposing themselves to human fire. While Commander Patel coordinated with field captains, her team simulating every possible response the aliens might attempt and prepositioning resources to ensure overwhelming advantage. And as days passed, human forces demonstrated their ability to neutralize Hegemony boarding parties, intercept reconnaissance probes, and disable communications arrays with surgical precision, all while maintaining minimal casualties and absolute control of the conflict's pace, revealing a level of tactical brilliance that no alien species had ever encountered. And as Korran's officers realized the futility of direct assault, they were forced to confront the most unsettling truth. Humanity had not merely prepared for defense. They had orchestrated the battlefield, manipulating perceptions, preempting moves, and demonstrating a depth of strategic patience that transformed every attempted provocation into a trap, a spectacle designed to educate, intimidate, and assert dominance without descending into uncontrolled aggression. And in the council chambers of Earth, leaders and scientists quietly observed the alien confusion, analyzing every signal and pattern to refine their approach, knowing that patience, precision, and controlled escalation were the most effective weapons. While the Hegemony fleet grew increasingly erratic, divisions appearing as panic spread, some ships withdrawing without orders, others attempting reckless maneuvers that were effortlessly countered by human calculations, demonstrating not just technological superiority but a mastery of psychology, deception, and anticipation. And as a key orbital platform deployed its signature weapon, an energy modulation field capable of temporarily neutralizing entire frigate squadrons, the aliens finally realized the extent of their error, the catastrophic misjudgment of dismissing humanity as weak, primitive, or predictable, a mistake whose consequences would resonate across light years. As entire fleets were forced into retreat, communications jammed, and carefully orchestrated illusions made the humans appear everywhere at once, leaving Korran and his officers reeling from the revelation that every action they had taken had been anticipated, every countermeasure accounted for, and every assumption about human limitations shattered. While back on Earth, strategists recorded the alien reactions, adjusting plans for future encounters, knowing that the galaxy had just witnessed the first demonstration of humanity's full operational capacity, a show of restraint, control, and overwhelming capability that ensured victory not through brute force alone but through intellect, preparation, and unwavering resolve, cementing humanity's place as a power that could not be ignored, underestimated, or threatened without catastrophic consequences. And as the Hegemony retreated to reassess, Earth's leaders recognized that this engagement, though carefully controlled, was a turning point, proving to the galaxy that humanity's ingenuity, patience, and determination were unmatched, that any future miscalculation by alien powers would be met with consequences calculated to educate, defend, and, if necessary, punish, and that from this moment onward, the name of the species that had once been dismissed as inconsequential would carry weight across every star system, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic politics, strategy, and the understanding of what it truly meant to underestimate humanity. As the Hegemony retreated to regroup, human forces did not relent but instead shifted into a controlled expansion, deploying surveillance drones to map alien movements, while Earth's orbital stations quietly adjusted defensive positions to cover emerging threats. And within the inner colonies, engineers accelerated the deployment of next-generation ships designed for rapid maneuvering and adaptive combat, ensuring that any renewed aggression would encounter a system-wide network of precision, targeted responses, while Admiral Korran, still reeling from the losses and unexpected effectiveness of human strategy, convened emergency councils across his fleet, attempting to re-establish control. Yet every suggestion, every potential tactic was preempted by humans anticipating both his thoughts and the chain reactions within his command structure. And on Earth, Commander Patel coordinated with allied colonies, sharing encrypted intelligence, deploying energy shields around critical infrastructure, and initiating controlled counteroffensives to test the Hegemony's reaction time, demonstrating humanity's ability to manipulate both space and perception with subtlety and restraint, while simultaneously ensuring minimal collateral damage and maintaining the appearance of calm confidence, creating a psychological advantage that left alien officers second-guessing every order. And as communication relays between alien ships faltered under human interference, attempts at coordinated attacks dissolved into confusion, as individual captains misinterpreted sensor data and misjudged human capabilities, triggering localized retreats that were carefully monitored by humans to draw the aliens into predictable patterns. And on Mars, the Orbital Defense Command Center executed a synchronized sequence of maneuvers, releasing decoy fleets, deploying cloaked energy emitters, and activating subspace jammers that scrambled enemy navigation, forcing Hegemony ships into bottlenecks, while Earth's surface-based installations readied precision strike capabilities that could neutralize any concentrated assault in minutes. And as the days turned into weeks, humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to manage multiple theaters of engagement simultaneously, balancing offensive readiness with defensive patience. And as Korran attempted to issue an aggressive counterattack, he discovered that every route, every option had been anticipated, blocked, or manipulated, leaving him and his officers trapped in a web of strategic brilliance that highlighted the fatal flaw of their initial arrogance. While back on Earth, political leaders maintained calm, issuing statements to neighboring systems asserting a willingness to defend allied species, leveraging the crisis to reinforce humanity's reputation as a disciplined but unstoppable power. And as humans executed a controlled orbital strike on a Hegemony frigate attempting to flank their positions, the results were precise, minimal casualties of civilians, and maximum disruption to enemy formations, forcing Korran to acknowledge for the first time that humanity's restraint and patience were not weaknesses but weapons, and that every measured decision, every technological innovation, and every calculated deployment was part of a coherent strategy designed to reveal strength while minimizing unnecessary escalation, demonstrating a level of foresight and tactical sophistication that no other species had ever displayed. And as alien fleets began withdrawing in disarray, humans continued monitoring, analyzing, and adjusting, proving that the galaxy's most dangerous mistake was not underestimating human firepower, but misunderstanding human intelligence, patience, and adaptability, and that from this point onward, the narrative of the cosmos would carry a single lesson: to provoke, underestimate, or ignore humanity was to gamble with consequences that could reshape empires, devastate fleets, and redefine the understanding of strategy, strength, and survival, as humans quietly consolidated their position, ensuring that every move was deliberate, every countermeasure effective, and every enemy miscalculation converted into an advantage, solidifying the beginning of an era in which humanity will be recognized not merely as survivors or explorers, but as architect of the galaxy's new balance of power, capable of turning arrogance into disaster, hesitation into opportunity, and underestimation into the greatest of mistakes, marking mistake of the ages not as a warning but as an enduring truth that echoed across the stars, ensuring that no species would ever view humans as insignificant again. And as Korran's fleet limped back toward the Hegemony's core systems, the realization settled across his officers like a shadow. The humans had not only defended their home but had rewritten the rules of engagement, demonstrating a combination of patience, intelligence, and power that no empire could ignore, a proof that the age of underestimating humanity had ended, and the galaxy would never recover the arrogance that had led them to this moment. With the Hegemony reeling from their disastrous engagement, humans shifted from reactive defense to controlled projection of influence, carefully demonstrating their ability to protect allies across nearby star systems while simultaneously testing the limits of alien response. And aboard Earth's orbital command station, Commander Patel and her senior strategist analyzed telemetry, adjusted drone patrols, and coordinated with AI-assisted fleet units, ensuring that every move was both a defensive safeguard, and a subtle display of power. While across the colonies in the Epsilon Eridani sector, newly deployed ships conducted reconnaissance that revealed previously hidden vulnerabilities in alien infrastructure, allowing humanity to preemptively neutralize potential threats without firing a single destructive shot. And as Korran convened emergency councils on his flagship, attempting to recalibrate tactics, he found himself trapped in a web of anticipation, every human maneuver pre-calculated, every route he might take anticipated, forcing him to watch his own fleet stumble into delays and missteps orchestrated with precision, while human forces exploited this confusion with measured strikes on non-critical systems, signaling capability without escalating to full-scale annihilation, all while maintaining moral and political leverage. And as the galaxy observed, through intercepted transmissions and neutral channels, humans projected the image of disciplined mastery, capable of overwhelming strength restrained by intelligence and ethics, creating doubt and fear in alien fleets far beyond sol space. While back on Earth, engineers accelerated deployment of experimental weapons, including phased energy arrays and adaptive shield networks, designed not to slaughter but to neutralize any aggressive maneuver with surgical precision, ensuring that any repeat miscalculation by alien powers would yield immediate consequences. And as human-controlled drone swarms swept through contested regions, intercepting supply lines and monitoring communication networks, the aliens found themselves constantly reacting to situations they did not create, unable to seize initiative, forced into defensive postures. And as the first coordinated rescue missions were executed to protect Allied civilian populations on fringe colonies, it became clear that humanity's reach extended beyond defense, signaling to the galaxy that any attack on humans would have cascading consequences, impacting innocents and strategic assets alike, a reality alien commanders had never contemplated. And as Korran witnessed the humans orchestrating multi-layered operations that blended tactical brilliance, ethical consideration, and psychological pressure, he was forced to confront a terrifying truth. Every assumption he had held about human predictability, weakness, and strategic simplicity was catastrophically wrong, and with each passing day, humanity revealed more of their layered defenses, fleet coordination, and adaptive technologies, showcasing that a combination of intellect, patience, and discipline could outmatch raw firepower. And as Earth's leaders convened with AI-driven advisors, plotting long-term strategies for galactic diplomacy and defense, they recognized that this engagement had permanently altered the perception of humans across every neighboring empire, proving that underestimated intelligence, moral restraint, and patience could become the most devastating weapons in the cosmos. And as the Hegemony's fleet limped into fractured positions, repairing communication breakdowns and attempting to regain initiative, humans continued methodically tightening control, conducting reconnaissance, reinforcing critical points, and preparing contingencies for every possible scenario, demonstrating that misjudging humanity had become the defining error of the era, a mistake whose consequences would resonate for generations, as every strike, countermeasure, and strategic deployment served as a lesson not only to Korran and his officers, but to every species that had ever doubted human capability, highlighting the inescapable truth that the age of underestimating humanity had ended. And from this point forward, any challenge to Earth would face the full scope of human ingenuity, strategy, and resolve, ensuring that the galaxy would remember the day the mistake of the ages began, when arrogance met preparation, and the underestimated humans revealed the depth of their power, patience, and unwavering determination to defend, protect, and shape the cosmic balance on their terms. As the Hegemony struggled to regain composure, humans shifted focus to control demonstrations of strategic dominance, orchestrating precise maneuvers that forced alien fleets to reveal weaknesses while minimizing actual conflict. And across sol space, orbital defense arrays recalibrated to cover emergent threats, drones conducted surveillance sweeps, and AI-assisted tactical units analyzed enemy formations in real time, allowing human commanders to anticipate moves before they were made. While on Earth, political leaders and military strategists convened to plan coordinated interventions in nearby systems, emphasizing protection of civilian populations, resource hubs, and allied species, demonstrating that humanity's power extended not just to warfare but to the careful, deliberate projection of influence. And as a Hegemony attempted to mount an organized response, they found every approach preempted by humans who had anticipated their routes, their signals, and even the likely timing of countermeasures, forcing them into defensive postures, delaying movements, and creating confusion among subordinate officers, while humans executed targeted countermeasures that disabled communications, intercepted reinforcements, and neutralized isolated vessels with surgical precision, all without engaging in full-scale destruction, signaling capability without provocation. And as intelligence reports from forward-deployed colonies flowed back to Earth, analysts integrated the data into predictive models, adjusting fleet deployments, energy shields, and drone patrols in near real time, demonstrating a level of operational sophistication that overwhelmed alien assumptions about human strategy, while Korran and his senior officers watched helplessly as every attempt at improvisation was anticipated, every calculated attack neutralized, and every retreat exploited to create strategic advantage for humans, revealing that the mistakes of underestimation had compounded into systemic failure. And as humans executed a controlled orbital strike on a Hegemony command frigate attempting to bypass Earth's defenses, the precision and restraint of the operation stunned alien observers, illustrating that humanity's brilliance lay not in reckless aggression but in calculated control, foresight, and ethical decision-making, while simultaneously broadcasting the ability to protect allied systems, subtly warning that any further attempts at provocation would trigger decisive, cascading consequences. And as weeks passed, the Hegemony fleets found themselves trapped in a multidimensional chess game, manipulated by humans who maintained superior situational awareness, adaptive tactics, and unparalleled coordination across every theater, forcing alien officers to confront the painful reality that every prior assumption about human weakness was fundamentally flawed, and that the era in which civilization could dismiss Earth without consequence had ended, while, on the colonies, rescue missions were executed with efficiency and precision, demonstrating humanity's commitment to allies and innocence, simultaneously reinforcing political and moral authority in the galaxy. And as Korran struggled to issue orders, he realized that the humans were no longer reacting. They were directing the course of the engagement, managing timing, perception, and outcome with unmatched skill, turning arrogance into vulnerability and hesitation into opportunity. And as Earth's fleets continued to execute layered operations that blended surveillance, controlled strikes, and diplomatic signaling, the galaxy began to understand that the so-called mistake of the ages was not simply a failed assumption by one fleet, but a revelation of humanity's mastery over strategy, technology, and foresight, ensuring that every civilization that had underestimated humans would face consequences both immediate and far-reaching. And as the Hegemony retreated in disarray, their officers fully grasped that this species, long regarded as inconsequential, had transformed the rules of engagement, projected influence across multiple systems, and demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and strategic control could outmatch overwhelming power, securing humanity's reputation as a force capable of reshaping the balance of the galaxy, and cementing the truth that any further miscalculation in underestimating humans will be catastrophic, leaving a legacy of caution, respect, and/or that would echo through the cosmos for generations. As the Hegemony fled in disarray, humans maintained relentless observation, using predictive algorithms and advanced sensor networks to monitor every ship, every maneuver, and every attempt at regrouping, while Earth's fleet repositioned with precision, deploying adaptive shields, drone escorts, and phased energy arrays in patterns designed to demonstrate control without unnecessary aggression, and across allied colonies. Communication relays ensured coordinated efforts, allowing humans to protect critical resources and civilian populations while subtly projecting influence over contested regions, reinforcing a reputation for both power and restraint. And as Admiral Korran convened emergency meetings on his flagship, his officers debated potential countermeasures, only to find that humans had anticipated their arguments, prepared contingencies, and executed operations that neutralized even the most unpredictable maneuvers, while on 8th, Commander Patel oversaw simulations, showing every possible reaction the Hegemony could attempt and adjusted strategies in real time, ensuring humans remained several steps ahead, their movements calculated, deliberate, and almost effortless in their efficiency. And as the aliens attempted to regain initiative through deceptive formations and feints, they discovered that humans had already accounted for such tactics, using adaptive drones and orbital platforms to intercept, confuse, and neutralize threats before they could pose any real danger, demonstrating a mastery of anticipation, patience, and operational depth that left alien commanders reeling, while Earth political leaders engaged in cautious diplomatic outreach, subtly reminding nearby species of humanity's capabilities and willingness to protect allies, further isolating the hegemony politically and psychologically. And as days turned into weeks, humans executed coordinated maneuvers that combined offensive readiness, defensive strength, and psychological influence, forcing alien forces into reactive patterns, mistakes amplified by the strategic patience of their opponents. And as Korran watched his fleet struggle under the weight of unanticipated resistance, he realized that the miscalculation of humanity had become systemic, revealing flaws not only in tactical assumptions but in the very doctrine his empire had relied upon for centuries. While on Earth, scientists monitored energy signatures, orbital patterns, and communications networks, continuously refining their defensive grid and preparing contingencies for every conceivable scenario, ensuring that the humans' advantage was both absolute and sustainable. And as the hegemony attempted to regroup in distant star systems, they were met with precise, non-lethal displays of force, electronic disruptions, and strategic positioning that reinforced humanity's dominance without provoking uncontrolled escalation, a demonstration of control, foresight, and discipline alien species had never witnessed. And as the consequences of underestimating humans became increasingly clear, Korran's officers began to document every error, every assumption that had been proven wrong, and every misstep converted into human advantage, while Earth's leaders quietly celebrated the success of coordinated strategy, ethical restraint, and the careful projection of influence, proving that intelligence, patience, and foresight could be as devastating as raw firepower, and that from this moment forward, humanity will be recognized not only as defenders of their home, but as architects of a new galactic balance, reshaping perceptions, recalibrating alliances, and ensuring that the mistake of the ages was remembered not as a minor incident, but as a turning point when the underestimated humans revealed the full scope of their capability, resilience, and strategic genius. A revelation that would echo across the galaxy for generations, warning every civilization that arrogance, complacency, and misjudgment in dealing with humanity were risks too great to take, as humans continue to consolidate influence, protect allies, and subtly demonstrate that the age of underestimating them had irrevocably ended, and that every move henceforth will be measured, precise, and potentially decisive, forever rewriting the rules of engagement, power, and respect in the cosmic arena. With the hegemony reeling from successive demonstrations of human mastery, humanity moved decisively, combining diplomacy, precision strikes, and protective maneuvers in a grand orchestration that left alien commanders reeling and entire fleets paralyzed by indecision, as Earth's orbital command station coordinated multi-layered defense grids, adaptive drone swarms, and subspace manipulation fields to neutralize threats before they could escalate, while allied colonies across contested systems experienced coordinated support, evacuations, and reinforcement of critical infrastructure, signaling to the galaxy that humans not only defended themselves but actively protected those in need. And as Admiral Korran convened a final emergency council aboard his flagship, he realized with stark clarity that every assumption about human capabilities, patience, and strategy had been catastrophically wrong. That the Empire's centuries of arrogance had collided with a species whose intelligence, foresight, and adaptability were unparalleled, and that the consequences of this miscalculation would redefine interstellar politics for generations. While back on Earth, leaders, strategists, and scientists observed the culmination of decades of preparation and centuries of subtle technological advancement as humans projected power without provocation, striking precisely when necessary, neutralizing aggression without unnecessary loss, and controlling perception across multiple systems, creating a psychological and strategic dominance that no alien species had ever encountered. And as Korran's fleet limped away in disarray, communication networks crippled, command cohesion fractured, and morale shattered, it became clear that the age of underestimating humanity had ended, replaced by a new reality in which humans dictated the terms of engagement, reshaping alliances, recalibrating interstellar diplomacy, and demonstrating that the combination of intellect, patience, and moral restraint could wield as much influence as any weapon of mass destruction. And as the dust settled across contested systems, humans quietly consolidated their influence, repaired infrastructure, ensured the safety of allies, and began the work of long-term galactic stability, their restraint and strategy leaving no doubt that they could unleash overwhelming power provoked further, but chose instead to teach through precision and foresight, and as a hegemony, the Saurith, Dominion, and other galactic powers recorded the devastating consequences of misjudging Earth, it became apparent that history would remember this era as a time when humanity transitioned from being underestimated observers to decisive architect of cosmic balance, a species whose ingenuity, patience, and unwavering resolve could turn arrogance into disaster, hesitation into opportunity, and miscalculation into a defining era of the ages, and as humans returned to their home systems, monitored distant threats, and quietly reinforced their alliances, the galaxy learned a singular, immutable truth, that a mistake of the ages was never merely a battle or a skirmish, but a revelation that underestimating humanity, ignoring their potential, or challenging their principles would always result in consequences so profound, so irrevocable, and so perfectly executed that no empire, no fleet, and no council could ever afford to repeat the error, leaving humanity recognized not as a species to be, trifle with but as a force of intellect, patience, honor, and strategic mastery whose shadow will forever loom over the stars, and whose restraint, when exercised, was a silent promise that power wielded wiser could achieve more than brute force ever could, ensuring that from this point onward, every civilization would approach Earth with respect, caution, and the understanding that humans, once underestimated, now defined the standards of strength, strategy, and foresight across the galaxy.